name is Amanda Glass. I'm a student at Georgetown College with EDU581. I've got Ashley Knight here with me today. She's the ESL teacher for actually Scott County Middle School and Royal Springs Middle School. We are focusing on a child for this project that is at Royal Springs. His name is Luis. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is different ways that you can gather data around all the 4 domains of language development. So what are some ways that you gather data for Luis?
We first start with the WAP test, which is their placement test when they move here. Luis in particular, as what we're going to call him, that's not his actual name, has moved back and forth a lot. So he has a lot of test scores that maybe don't accurately assess his abilities. So it's also important to maybe keep like just a general portfolio of his work so you can document it. His WAP scores when he first came in, but then he ended up moving back to Mexico. He was here long enough to take the WIDA access testing, which happens in January, which, looking at his scores, his overall is still fairly low on a scale of 5. He's a 2.1. He does the best with listening. He's very capable with a 3.4 there, but he's still really struggling with speaking and writing. He struggles putting words into English, and he's only at 1.9.
And some of the things that they talk about in class for gathering data on students that are really low is to do a lot of anecdotal records, a lot of observations where you take a lot of notes. Do you have like a packet or a portfolio of him that shows classroom observations and things where you've assessed him without using English language?
I wouldn't say like I keep documented just on observation. I do just compile like work that he's progressed through. So at the beginning of the year, we started with writing really simple dialogues. Him and another student, they would write a dialogue together just to work on just everyday language. And slowly we progress as the year. So I've been keeping just a portfolio of his writing. And usually their writing pieces are used as speaking pieces too. So they'll write it, they'll speak. And in that, they're going to listen and read. And sometimes there's reading that goes with it. So I would say I've compiled more actual assessment and then walked around and observed, but I don't have anecdotal notes of just observations.
And I would say that would be really hard to do just with your schedule, because I was talking with my class about how you have 3 classes at one school, then you're planning. Is you're traveling to here to another school and then trying to get some planning in, which I'm taking up today, and
eating lunch.
And then doing 3 classes, so it makes it kind of hard for you to actually do everything that they're telling us to do, which we all learned in school. It's hard, you know, there's the ideal things, and then you get into the school and you see what you're actually able to work with. But yeah, that was one of the big things, was just keeping continuous data, so at least you're keeping his work and you have something to compare it to.
And then, you know, I can also pass that folder along, because he's in 8th grade, so I'll be able to pass it on to the next ESL teacher, and she can kind of then make observations of, is he improving, is he not improving. Unfortunately, because he's moved around so much, there's not been a lot of consistency. Like the last time he was here in the States, he was like in 2nd grade, so nothing's been able to be passed to me. Like he's a brand new student, even though he's in 8th grade. So hopefully by next year we'll start having an understanding of his capabilities and how we can help him more successfully.
Now, when they move around a lot like that, I mean, it's like starting over every time then, I guess. You don't know where they are with their language or their content or...
And yeah, and they often forget, because at home they're speaking Spanish. They're not speaking English at home. When they're with their friends, they're not speaking English. And then when they move back and forth, they move somewhere they're not speaking English, they're not going to speak. So he maybe learned a whole bunch in 2nd grade, and then completely by 8th grade, he was starting to brain over. So I think, and also there might be some academic things, because he does seem like, compared to my other students, he's not acquiring knowledge as well. But who knows, he's also missing that. He has no transfer between his L1 and his L2, because there's so many academic holes as well, just even in his first language.
So how do you guys, this is a little off topic, but we did talk about this in class. How do you guys identify them if they're ELL and special ed?
I do have a few of those students, but that's a lot harder because they have to be speaking English. They usually like at least 2 years. They
Mhm.
won't even consider it for 2 years.
Yeah.
They're moving around even more, which is even harder because you can't prove they've been in the schools for 2 years. So right now we have a student who we're trying to refer. His first year was last year, but I don't think he started at the very beginning.
Mhm.
And we tried all year long because he wasn't progressing, and we could just tell even simple math skills were low.
Mhm.
And until the mom was on board, it's a fight, like, because you have to deal with school psychologists, you gotta deal with special ed teachers, counselors, the parents, the ESL teacher, the core teachers, and you're trying, translator.
Yeah.
It's been, and we're almost 1 month, and we just finally got an ARC for him to start testing this
Oh,
student.
wow.
So it took all year just trying to fight for this, because this would be his second year here, and they're just now agreeing to it because mom finally said, if you don't help, I don't know what to do with him. So, unfortunately, besides the 2 years rule and a lot of observation to see if it's language or not, they won't just give a kid a test. They can do testing in English and Spanish to see if there's a big difference. If you know there's a whole bunch more in Spanish but not English, then they know it's a language. But if it's low in both, then there's more behind it. But just to give, you would think you could just give them that test, but they won't do that. They want all this proof before they can even do the special ed evaluation. So yesterday, literally fighting for this meeting all year long, we met for an hour and just to agree that we would give them this test finally. So it took all year of just phone calls home, I had to document his behavior daily. So it's really hard actually. When the ESL part component there, they don't want to identify. Because it is, but there is a problem with that. Once they're identified as special ed and ESL, they're always. Because most likely, now they've been identified as ESL, and they have to get that 5 on the access test. They'll be ESL forever just because maybe cognitively they can't pass that test. It has nothing to do with their language ability. It's just, so now you got special ed and ESL and they won't be able to test out. So I think there are those hoops because we don't want to identify them that, but they've already been identified as ESL, so.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. They gave us the opportunity to do like an extra credit to find out about all of that because it wasn't really taught, what they do. We just learned that if they are identified as both, that they give both accommodations on like the assessments and
Yes,
stuff.
I do. Like I will have, with these students that I have both, I have to give them their LEP and also their IEP, but sometimes their IEP will kind of go over mine. Like if they get a reader and scribe, I don't need to give them reader and scribe too. They already have that. So I want to try to give them accommodations that their IEP wouldn't, like use of simplified language, where I can take these words and I can give them a simpler English word. So they might be reading it, and my accommodation might say, now read this, but interchange this word for a word they might know in English. So, and also a bilingual dictionary. So you want to try to give them accommodations that just aren't the same. So.
Now, some of the things that, I'm just going to go over a list of some things that I compiled that they recommended for us to do to gather data, and you're doing a lot of that. The home language survey we already talked about. Now, parent-teacher meetings or possible home visits. Have you had meetings with your parents and tried to involve them in the process, and how's that gone?
I've been with the ARC meetings, behavior, or academic meetings. Home visits, we often are done by central office and like the Family Resource Center, because I'm covering more than one school. We have other people that usually cover those, especially people that speak the native language a little bit more. I speak proficiently, but having to have a very quick verbatim conversation
Right.
You know,
Not fully fluent. That's how I am. I can speak it and understand it, but there's a few things in there that I might miss.
if you get a parent that's upset and they're going to start speaking quicker and maybe using language you're not as familiar with, and it's like,
Or a different dialect or slang or anything like
Yeah.
that. The other thing was the WIDA Access assessment, which you're already doing. You talked about the portfolios, which is the ongoing constant formative assessment. Unfortunately, Louise doesn't have any prior folders from other schools. That was another note that I'd made. And then, now we've talked a lot about performance assessments. Do you do those with the kids? I mean, I know you said you have a portfolio, so I would assume that they were intertwined with the lessons, but.
Yeah, more so at Royal Springs. I actually have classes there. I teach 3 classes, 8th grade classes, 7th grade, 6th grade, and I go through units. Right now, we're just finishing a business letter unit where we talked about, we were writing kind of like a complimentary letter to a company and then also making a request at the end, like if you could send samples or coupons or something. And we addressed envelopes, and so we had a draft. We did like a product comparison, like they took a product and like explained why they liked it better. So there was comparing and contrasting. We learned some new vocabulary with it. So that was kind of like their pre-write. They did a rough draft. I edited it. Then for their final draft, they're actually going to mail these letters, which they're pretty excited about. So everything's designed in units that's going to give them a chance to work on their reading, speaking, writing. We read other letter examples, and at the beginning of the year we did a friendly letter, and they wrote to friends, which was way simpler. So we're trying to build. Prior to that, I do a lot of that on-demand picture over there. They have to do these writing things. Were really challenging. They're 90 minutes. They're supposed to write these 5 to 6 paragraph papers. They can't do it, but we did in class word for word. They at least got it modeled, for they kind of know when it comes to those testing, they know how to do it. And we did it based on NTI days, which is a new thing in school this year, which I had to explain to them what an NTI day was. You go home, you have to get it online, you have to do your work there. And, you know, so I try to incorporate lessons of things they're actually dealing with, but while covering the 4 different language domains.
Which, yeah, and that's something that they said was really important, just to make it relevant to them.
Yeah.
And those performance assessments and intertwining the assessments in with the lessons makes it more self-motivating, I guess, for them, rather than saying, remember this, answer this, and then they sit there and they look at that test and they barely even understand what it says.
Exactly, and they learned what a counter argument was, because that was a big thing on their on-demand writing piece last time, is they had to, okay, I think this, but you might be able to argue. They didn't know what a counter. So with our NTI, we said they were good because we get out earlier, but they could be bad if you didn't have online or access to online. So they learned how to do that, and then we did that right before they actually had to do an on-demand. Unfortunately, it couldn't be
That's cool.
it couldn't be the same topic, because
Yeah.
we're not supposed to know, even though these are practice on demand. So we also talked about in my class, once they did their actual one, and I saw what the question was, we kind of talked about what they could have wrote or what they did, but we're trying to prepare them for May when they have to do this for real.
Yeah.
And we would have no knowledge
And
of what.
Do they get to take the test in Spanish, or do they have to take it in English?
They have to take it in English. The first year, you probably learned this in class, they're exempt, or it's technically like 180 days, I think, so it might not be a full year even, depending on how they came into the school year. But it counts then. After that 1 year, they get to, it doesn't count the first year, but they still have to take it.
Yeah.
And then the next year it counts. So, you know, these kids are barely speaking. They maybe write five words and make a sentence, and they're supposed to write for 90 minutes.
I can't imagine being in that position. That would be detrimental for me, because I was always a big perfectionist. And you could have a child that come from another country and made great, wonderful grades, and then come here and be expected to do it all in English, and they're just like,
I don't know.
yeah. Let's see. Now, another thing that they said, this was just a recommendation, was to provide the students with opportunities to make decisions on the type of product they produce. So giving them options so that they can say, oh, I'm comfortable with that. I'll be able to communicate that way. Say, if you give them an idea for a project, then giving them an opportunity to either do an oral presentation or a, a poster or something like that. That was just another recommendation.
That happens a lot with my classes. Unfortunately, we couldn't get them structured based on proficiency level. It had to be by grade. The teacher, the principal, and how everything was set up before I got there was it has to be in their Apple class. You can pull them. It has to be by grade then, because it's by Apple class, which is their art, music, dance. So I may have kids that are about to exit out, and then a brand new 8th grader. So I often have to all these assignments have to be modified individually. So overall ESL is going to be modified, but then I have to modify it based on my kids' individuals. So I tend to pair them based on their ability level in class, but that has proven tricky. I just got a brand new one from Mexico, and then I've had this kid who was born here. They just are still struggling because their parents speak Spanish at home all day. So, but they're in the same classroom.
Oh man,
Yeah, so.
That's a challenge because it's almost. I mean, and even if they're not identified as special needs, as a teacher, you can tell.
Yeah.
So you know what they need, and you know how to differentiate. And you see, you've got 10 students, and one of them is about to exit out and is getting distinguished, and the other one's
Been here 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge that a lot of us don't even consider when we talk about this, because when you're in class, you talk about it in terms of the perfect world,
Yeah.
What would you do? And
Being out of school only half a day, this is the setup I get, this is setup.
Yeah.
There's no, okay, I can have beginners in the morning, advanced students in the afternoon. No.
yeah, and there's no flexibility as far as meeting with the teachers. That was another thing that I hated for you, because how can you collaborate with teachers when their planning period is your teaching period?
Like yesterday, just to go to that art for the special eds, the student that we're trying to get referred, I had to get someone to cover my second hour because they were all on plan, but I'm supposed to be teaching them.
Yeah.
So to go to a meeting, I have to not be with my students, which I tell the teachers, I'm like, I'd love to collaborate with you more, but then that is detrimental to my students. So if you want to meet, it has to be before school,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to email me. I don't mind to help, or you can stop by, but I'm not going to just drop what I'm doing, because
Yeah,
I
you
know.
can't leave your kids.
yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be a revamping of that somewhere. I put a little note in for you on
Yeah.
one of my assignments. I was like, she can't collaborate with her teachers. I was hoping, since it was Georgetown College, maybe they would
They would do something.
they would see it and do something. Okay, so we're supposed to describe Luis, and you can either do that since you know him well. I've got something typed out that you told me, but it's up to you.
Doesn't matter. I already kind of said what his overall access score was, which is a 2.1. He is a migrant student. He moves around a lot. We mentioned that he's lived in Texas, Mexico. He's been in Georgetown twice now. He was here at a younger age and went to one of the elementary schools. He's 8th grade. He's a male student. He's very bright, but he's really nervous too. He's a very shy student, which doesn't help when you're trying to get him to speak. Like even just participating in games, he doesn't want to do. And like his drama teacher had the hardest time. Anytime there has to be like a presentation, he doesn't want to do it. Which he's got to break that fear, or he's never going to become, even just speaking wise, like he doesn't want to read out loud in class. And so that's another thing you have to worry about. Like all kids go through the silent period as new ESL students, but then you get those shy kids. And then you got that whole other barrier. Okay, we're past the silent stage, but they just don't have the confidence.
And with him moving around so much, that may be why he's so quiet and shy.
Yeah, there was one girl I remember that remembered him from elementary school and was like, got excited, and like he was just so like, and the little girl was like afraid she upset him, and then I just started after a while learning that was his personality, and it might be.
I wonder if there might be some autism or something there, if he doesn't want to socialize.
Yeah, he's got one real friend that he buddies up with, but beyond that, he's very shy, and that's another challenge you have to add on to it. But he's very polite.
And so you said that he was actually supposed to be in 9th grade this year, right? Didn't they try to put him in 9th grade?
Yeah, and that happens too. There's no cutoff. Unfortunately, that's another problem. That's happened a couple times to me this year. I was told I was going to get a few kids, and then they ended up putting them in 9th grade, even though, and then sometimes you get way too old of kids in your class. There's no rule. They just, and if you get some students that they don't know how old the kid is, and that happens sometimes. I don't know how that happens, but they'll just kind of guess. So.
Oh, wow. Like maybe they don't have birth records or anything like that, and they can go ahead and take them at school without all of that?
Yeah. You usually have to have a birth certificate, but I'm not sure the logistics and all the laws on that. I don't have to require that stuff. That's the registrar's office.
Now, the last part of this is just the recommendations for a balanced assessment system. And I put in here just what I knew about your current practices, but we haven't actually got to talk a whole lot about that because you're busy, and I'm busy, but I know you said that, we've already talked about all that, that only 3 accommodations can be used on the state assessment, and that you tend to recommend the bilingual dictionary, extended time, and simplified language. Now, what about, let's see, and then you said you do the portfolio. I guess what I typed up for my recommendations, I'll just tell you that because we've already had quite a bit of dialogue about what you do with them. Basically, what we've learned is a comprehensive balanced assessment system is comprised of various forms of assessment, both formative and summative, which I'm sure you're aware of. With formative being the most beneficial in terms of progressing the student because you can figure out where they are now and where they were and what you need to do to scaffold to get them to their next goal. And so an effective and equal assessment system will incorporate various techniques to paint an entire picture evaluation of the student's ability and skills in terms of their content knowledge and their language proficiency. Now, let's see. Student assessment data should be priority. This doesn't simply refer to standardized tests. A standardized test often don't give any benefit to the student. That's just for accountability purposes for school systems and teachers. And so we need to, as educators, make sure that we're not so focused on that test and we're more focused on the formative assessments that get our students to their goals. Do you have anything to add?
The only thing, a few of the more formative assessments we do, I do bell ringers with them every day, and it's been pretty much the same bell ringer. I don't know if you talked about Marzano in class much.
Not in this one, but I've heard.
But yeah, so usually we focus that around vocabulary. Each day they'll get a word, it'll probably become part of the unit. Like when we did compare and contrast, they would look the word up, they'd have to use it in a sentence, and then they'd have to draw a picture and write a synonym, or I would tell them to put, like, if they were still Spanish speaking, that in their native language, like, fine. So each day, and they ended up kind of creating this big dictionary basically for themselves of words that would have a picture, a definition.
Yeah.
I then incorporated that with a formative/summative test where we did a pre-test, a middle of the year test, and then we just did our final, and it was over 30 words. And basically they had to be able to read the word, they had to be able to identify the definition, and then lastly they had to find a picture, match it to its definition. So it was kind of like a read, define, and use test. So it was like out of 90 points for 30 words 30 times. And so it was, we gave it before they even knew what the words were. And you know, some of them could read a lot of the words, but they didn't know them. And we chose to do math, academic language. So it's not just random words, it's like we're trying to do it over different academics. So next year we might do science and social studies just to increase their academic language.
Right.
So Marzano, he has a list of 30 for each grade and each subject matter, and these are like words that they need to know for that grade. So even though the student might not be at a sixth grade level, they're still learning those sixth grade academic. That way when they come across it in class, it'll be like, oh yeah, we learned that in Miss Knight. That's equilateral, it means something with the same equal sides. So it's kind of like pre-teaching that, front loading.
I'm glad you touched on that too, because that was a big part of it, was the academic language. I mean, that's what you're trying to teach them on top of their core content and all of that.
Yeah. So that's just a few of the other assessments we do, which that's all year long, and they're building on that. And then I try to incorporate those words into lessons, or at least into their bell ringer every day. That way they're getting those words.
Yeah, I like how you said too that you'll let them respond in their native language if they need to, and then you can watch that progression as they go from feeling comfortable in their native language to finally feeling comfortable in English.
Because, you know, I put all that definition up there and they might not understand that, but as soon as I say the native language plus the picture, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they have a picture, a synonym, or their native language and definition. It's a paper I'll get you in a minute, and it's actually structured by him. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would love that. That's all the information that I needed to go over for class. I appreciate your help
No problem.
so much.